Welcome to this video on why working harder is not the answer. So if you feel like you're working really hard, but it's not equating to the progress that you want to see in your business, then this is exactly for you. So I want to share how to work on your business and create momentum in a way that actually gets to be easier. Now, I presented this to a group of incredible female founders last night, and the feedback was just so wonderful that I thought I would jump on, just use the slides that I've already created, do a quick YouTube video, and share this on my channel for anyone else who feels like they're working harder and harder and harder for diminishing returns. And the things that I want to share in this video, I want you to reflect on them from the point of view of your own business and your own stance, and see the changes that you might need to make or the things that you need to bring to the light. Because working harder, if that was the solution, you would have already solved all of your business problems by now, but we'll get into that. So I'm going to share with you how to look at effort and progress slightly differently in your own business. And I hope you've got a pen and paper, because we're going to get to do some work here together. I'm going to share with you the few things that actually drive growth and share with you a practical framework to work on the business, which is really important to me, because when I had my agency business and I was a fast growth business and doing the Goldman Sachs program and all of that kind of thing, people always used to say to me, you need to work on the business. And whether I was following Tony Robbins around the world or Jay Abraham or any of these incredible coaches, I would always sit there with my pen and paper waiting for them to reveal the answer. I would sit there, wait, okay, they're going to tell me what it is. Okay, they're going to tell me. And the answer never came. So that's what I want to share with you. I want to actually share with you a framework to work on your business and show you what to actually do. Well, my name's Sean. I'm an agency veteran turned strategic business coach. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I lived in the UK for 20 years, where I grew my agency business. And I do have the Goldilocks of business exits. I've had one that was, I guess you could say, successful. I've had one that not so much, and one that was an utter failure. So I've been through pretty much every stage of life cycle of a business, and now I just really enjoy helping business owners to see their business thrive. I've always been into adrenaline sports, whether it's motorbikes or wakeboarding or whatever it is. And now I live in Portugal with my husband and 3 dogs. So that's us, and I'm looking forward to seeing your business thrive. First thing that I want to share with you is why effort doesn't equal progress. And this is where we're going to start. I'd love you to grab a piece of paper and put a line down the middle so that you've got 2 columns. And on the left-hand column, I want to get you to just reflect for a moment. And I want you to think about, what does working hard look like in your business right now? I want you to write down all the activities, all the tasks, all the things that you're doing that drain you. And just go ahead and just start writing all those things down. While you're doing that, or if you need to press pause, I want you to think about how that busy work kills your vision and it kills your dream. I heard a saying once, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but little stuff kills the big stuff. So when you have a vision of the business that you're trying to create, a vision of the life that you want to lead, and a business that supports that, when we get caught in the trap of the little work, the busy work, the stuff that keeps you busy but doesn't actually show you progress, that's where things start to get stuck. That's where things start to break. So I want you to write down that list right now. What drains you? We're going to have a look at that and maybe see if there's some things that we can change. Now, in stark contrast, on the other side of your piece of paper, I want you to look at what progress looks like. What does progress in your business look like? How does it feel when you're making progress? How does it feel when you're moving forward? What's happening? What are you doing? And I want you to write that on the other side of the paper. Working hard sustains the current version of your business, but working on the right things can change the trajectory. And that's the message that I want you to take. And I want you to look at those two lists that you've just prepared, and I want you to really be honest with yourself because it's just you. Be honest with yourself. How much time, what percentage of your time are you spending on keeping things going, on just being busy versus actually improving the business or working on the highly leveraged activities that are actually going to drive the business forward? Be really honest with yourself. I see it over and over again where founders start a business because they want freedom, they want their own autonomy, they want to go it alone for various reasons. And what tends to happen is you start out, you get lots of referrals, there's loads of energy and excitement in the beginning. And then what happens is you end up on a plateau. And on that plateau, that's where the founder becomes the bottleneck. And the business only works when you do. That's a really heavy, difficult place to be in. Because what's really happening is that momentum is slowing down as you've hit that plateau. And I was recently asked on a podcast, what is the main reason that businesses stall and their growth stops and they start failing? And if I had to say it in one word, it would be momentum. When you have a startup business, the reason why most startups fail, not because it's a bad product or they're not good at what they're doing or anything like that, it's usually because they're starting from standing still. So when you have your business and you get out of startup phase and you get into momentum, it's really important to keep the momentum. Stop doing things that will end up in start, stop mode. But if you are on that plateau and you're busy and you're spinning your wheels and you feel like the bottleneck in your business, I want you to think about some of the common traps. And I just want to give you a different perspective. Because I've said these things and I hear many people say these things, that when I get to X revenue, things will be easier. When I just get more clients, things will be okay. I hear variations of these kinds of myths. But in reality, what's happening is you will start hustling to get some sales. The sales will come in, and then you switch focus to delivering to those clients. And then you think, oh no, I need sales. And you switch to hustling on sales. And it's like a seesaw. And you're just constantly on that seesaw. So if you're saying these or any variation of these kinds of things, what I want to say to you, which is quite painful, is that if getting more revenue, getting more clients solved the problems, you would have already fixed it. So if you do hear yourself saying these things, it's not the root cause, it's just a symptom. The root cause is, generally speaking, more foundational. And I want to help you to start fixing some of those things through the course of this video. So let's have a look at the few things that actually drive growth. And I want to start here because one of those foundational things that I've just mentioned, like that seesaw of delivery and sales, is 80% of the time, that's where I see businesses get stuck. And so it's really important to know that there are only 3 ways to grow any business. There are only 3 ways to grow any business. I don't care what business it is. This is not rocket science. There are 3 ways to grow a business. And you're probably very familiar with the first way, which is to get more clients. And that's generally where we spend most of our time. And we have to look at metrics around that. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail later on. But these are the 3 ways that you can grow any business. Get new clients, increase the transaction value. So that means upselling, creating bundles, selling more value to the client, and then also increasing the frequency, the number of times that you sell to the same clients. I used to do talks and I used to do a lot of webinars, seminars, and that kind of thing. And I always used to get somebody who would say, yeah, but what if you're a funeral business? Well, if you can't increase the frequency of sale to existing customers, then you need to swap that number for referrals. I will always have a workaround for you. A really well-rounded growth strategy for any business is going to have all 3 of these things, strategies for all 3 of these things. And I do an exercise with my clients where I say, if you grow the number of new clients by 10%, increase how much you're charging them by 10%, and increase the frequency that you sell to them by 10%, what impact will that have on your business? And the compound growth actually means you're going to grow your business by about 72%. So a well-rounded growth strategy focuses on all three. But for the purposes of this video, I am going to talk about getting new clients. And I want to share with you my stadium analogy. I don't know where you live. I live in Lisbon in Portugal. So if I filled the Benfica stadium with all of your ideal clients, and I had a profile of your ideal clients, I went out there, I gathered them up, and I filled the Benfica stadium with your ideal clients. And whatever you sell, websites, houses, shoes, cakes, I don't really care. Whatever you sell, if I got in front of all of those people and I said, who is actually looking right now to buy a new car, a house, a website, whatever it is, 3% of people would raise their hand and say, yeah, actually, I'm looking for that. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because most people focus on that 3% and only on that 3%. And your competitors are also focusing on that 3%. So you end up in a bloody red ocean of competitiveness. Now, if I just take that stadium for a moment and the illustration of your market, and if I just transpose that for a moment onto a triangle, this triangle represents your market. And if only 3% of people are buying right now, then you're forgetting the rest of the market. And this is where you can make your marketing a lot more profitable and a lot easier. I've also recently heard a lot of people say that they post on social media, they're doing this on social media, and nothing's happening, they don't get results. And the thing is, I think in Venn diagrams. If only 3% of your audience are actually ready to buy, and only about 6% of your social media audience actually sees your post, imagine that as a Venn diagram. You've got a very, very short slither of your audience that are actually ready to buy, who've seen the post. So basically what's happening is you're trying to win the lottery. And that's very difficult and it's exhausting. So if you've said anything lately like social media just doesn't work for me, that might be why. And I want to share with you some strategies that you can work on to think about marketing differently, which is what this is all about. Because the rest of the market, they're not thinking about buying. They're not entirely sure if they're interested. They're not solution aware. Some of them might not even be aware of a problem that they have. And if you look at this and you actually map the path from the bottom to the top of the triangle, this is how we can actually map out a profitable marketing system. And if we actually flip that triangle upside down, that becomes your sales funnel. So this is where I can change your perception of marketing. Because when you target the 3% of people who are actually ready to buy, those are generally short-term marketing strategies that target those hunters, that target those people that have their credit cards ready. And those are things like pay-per-click or paid advertising and short-term strategies. In other words, you are there at the moment that that person is looking for your services. Long-term strategies such as SEO, PR, and other types of marketing are the long-term strategies. These are the things that you do to get people to know you, like you, and trust you, so that by the time they fall into the 3% category, they're ready to buy from you and not your competitors. And when I teach these strategies to my clients, I actually teach 21 lead generation strategies inside my Nail It and Scale It program. And what I try to get clients to focus on is to have a short-term strategy, get that working really, really well, maximized, optimized, and systemized, then add a long-term strategy and repeat the process. Then have a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy. And over the course of a few months, maybe a year, you can actually build yourself a marketing pantheon that is so strong and stable that if one of the pillars gets knocked out, you'll still have other lead sources bringing in leads to the business. Back in 2011, I had a digital marketing agency and we did SEO for clients. And there was a Panda update to the Google algorithm, which basically overnight wiped out so many websites who relied on SEO as their core lead generation strategy. And it hurt a lot of businesses. That's why I like to use the analogy of this pantheon so that you can have a really strong marketing system and you can build a pipeline of good leads coming into your business. I could talk about this topic for maybe 3 hours, maybe even longer if you gave me the chance. So instead, I've put everything into a book that you can download. I'll put a link below. You can also scan the little QR code if you're watching on your computer. Right, let's get to how to work on your business. We're going to do some more work. So again, you're going to need your pen and paper, but I just want to share with you this advice. We've all heard some kind of variation of this advice that you need to work on your business, not in the business. And it's very well-meaning advice. But I remember once upon a time when I had my agency business and I was growing, but I was in that messy in the middle phase, and I did hire a business coach. And he used to say to me, Sean, you need to work on the business. And I used to say, okay, but what must I do? And he could never actually tell me the answer. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and figure it out. I'm going to just go and figure it out myself. And that's what I did. And I ended up having a business that gave me my dream life. So I want to share the 7 pillars of business mastery with you. And the idea, again, just like the marketing pantheon that you want to build, this was also inspired by a visit to Rome when I saw the Pantheon. Because I thought to myself, this building here has survived wars, floods, earthquakes, hundreds of thousands of tourists, and yet it's still standing. And if you can take the pillars of your business, and I believe that every business has 7 pillars, and they're the same 7 pillars in any business, particularly service-based businesses, agencies, consultancies, where you're doing project work or offering services to clients. So not necessarily a tangible product, although the principle still applies. Now, if you can make all of the pillars in your business so strong, your goals, your revenue targets will become an obvious result. So if you can just focus on these pillars one at a time and get them all really, really strong, then you will reach your goals. Now, I've been working in this kind of business consulting and coaching for so long that if you show me a business and show me their monthly revenue, I can pretty much tell you which pillar in the business is going to be more blocked than any others. But I'm not here to play parlor games. I want to share with you those 7 pillars. So marketing, messaging and marketing mastery, which is what we've just talked about, and selling and sales systems. Now, these 2 pillars are contingent. I believe that these 2 pillars need to be working so that you have got leads coming into the business, your leads are converting into sales, you have a way of generating revenue. And I really believe that everything rolls downhill from leads, pillars. And then, of course, we've got the business model and client delivery, systems that scale, financial and legal, and you and your mindset. But the key point that I want to make is that problems are progress. And every single problem, big or small, that you solve in your business is another step closer to where you want to be. And the idea around this is that it's going to give you back time. Because if you solve a problem, that's not going to come up again. And then it's going to give you back time. And also, I want you to start thinking about how to create leverage in your business, particularly if you do feel like the bottleneck in the business, that as the founder, everything relies on you. So if you have a piece of paper, you can write down the 7 pillars. And then what I want you to do is to spend a few minutes, and I want you to write down under each pillar your top 3 to 5 challenges, niggles, barriers, or obstacles under each pillar. Now, this shouldn't take long. Once you've done that and you've got your capture list, I want you to schedule a weekly CEO meeting or weekly pillar meeting. And I want you to pick one of the pillars, whichever one it is that you want to start with. And I want you to do one thing. Just work on one of those problems or challenges. Next week, you'll work on the next pillar. The week after, the next one. After 7 weeks, you'll come right back to the beginning where you started, and you'll repeat the process. The magic happens when, as you start to solve problems under each of these pillars, more and more time will get freed up in your business. So I really want you to work on that and commit to doing that. In fact, pause this video right now and go and put it in your diary. Go and schedule that CEO meeting where you can go away from the office, you can go somewhere, and for 60 to 90 minutes, sit down and just work on the business. Now that you have the framework, it's really simple and it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I'll put some resources in the description box below so that you can download that marketing book and you can have a look at some other things that might help you move forward faster in your business. Thank you very much for your time.